We should just reissue the cover with like, this is what we'll do it. It'll be I Kiss Dating Goodbye, a guide to FemNUNism, and just have like Handmaid's Tale on the chick from Handmaid's Tale on the front cover.
They're self-imposing the 90s purity movement on themselves. I mean, hey, like, hey, I'm all about it, ladies.
Culture? Question mark.
To the I'm Telling God About This podcast. We have a crazy exciting episode for you today. Trump has won and there was a red wave, and in spite of this political thing going on right now, women are shaving their heads, people are committing suicide, a dad murdered his whole family. What the heck is going on? Today we're going to be covering specifically the 4B movement and this phenomena that's popping up where all of these women are shaving their heads and posting it on TikTok. And there's been news articles and videos about it. 4B stands for something, and it is a movement that didn't originate here. And so really what we want to explore is, what is this triggering event that is causing them to run down this insane rabbit trail where people are falling off the rails? What do you guys think?
Yeah, hold on.
I think we should take a look at what's going on.
We have a film.
Yes, let's see this.
Look at the women who are taking part in this.
No matter how loud, how kind, respectful, how cute, men will still hate you.
Women are talking about bringing that 4B movement right here to the United States.
Time a lot. Operation 4B.
Refuse to date men, get married, have sex with them, or children.
All I have to say is good luck getting laid. Me and my girlies are participating in the 4B movement.
No more kitty cat for moderate men.
And all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be. Clearly, they don't about us.
No attention to men. Delete block. Do not respond to them.
It is the best thing I've ever done for my mental health. I'm not crazy. We have to do this together.
Brittany, what is going on here?
There you have it.
Okay, so this is crazy. Wait, hold on, Nick. This isn't because they refuse to wear veils, right? Like, you know how Paul says if a woman is not to wear a veil, she should shave her head. This isn't related, is it?
It has no correlation whatsoever. I mean, this is nut job Americans.
Because like I'm getting like, you know, if by judging by the amount of Handmaid's Tale memes I saw going into the election, I think there might be some perception of, you know, what's actually going on here. And I mean I think that's what's interesting about this is that, you know, there's this whole notion of like how a certain percentage of the population, what they think is going to happen. And, you know, part of it is absolute lunacy, but also the other part of it is like not entirely their fault. I mean, the way that a certain portion of the media has portrayed, you know, our president-elect and, you know, what he was going to do, and the way that they painted things like Project
well, that was their number one issue, right?
Yeah, they wanted to make
issue that was the opposition was running on to say, well, we're going to go back to, you know, the 19 or 1800s or whatever it was.
Yeah, like we're the
Taliban.
Like,
you know,
we're going to make women wear burqas and not let them go to college anymore, and you know, come after all of their rights.
Well, that was the messaging. That was what was being portrayed, and so this was the response. And what's interesting is there's been a whole lot of a backlash on the media and the left, like the like MSNBC and a lot of these CNN and a lot of these pro Democrat or pro left media sources have lost subscriptions. They've lost followers. I think people are just saying like, we need to reassess where we're getting our information from, because we don't, obviously they were telling us it was a done deal and it was the closest election of all time. Turns out not at all. It was the red wave that everybody was waiting for. And so it's interesting that, you know, this is the reaction. 'Cause initially people are like, this is it, you know, we're going to go back in time. We're going to lose all our rights, and I don't think that's anywhere close to the reality. But still, these people are doing it.
Right, and this is what's ironic is that what this has shown us is that even though it's all over the media, right, and we're doing video about it, and like Brett Cooper did a video about it, and you know other people are doing videos and talking about this 4B thing, but it's funny. But when you actually look at the data that we now have because of the election, and I think this is what's really fascinating. is when you look at the data, it's actually a very small percentage of women in this country. And so it makes it more hilarious because it's kind of like, okay, thank you for self-selecting. Like we'll be able to spot the crazy from far away. I wish this had happened when I was younger. You know, how many crazy women could I have avoided in my dating life had they just opted to, you know, be a part of this 4B movement? And I would have been like, this is great because, you know, here I am looking, you know, just what I have in my wife. But, you know, most young men are looking for women who like understand a biblical picture of what a family looks like and who want those same values and those same things. Like, I don't think that these women understand, and it's hilarious because of how, you know, the vitriol that they're using, but it's also really sad, you know, because it's sad because they don't one, it says that they think that the majority of men are so shallow that those are the things that are going to stop them from being interested in women and or what they want, right? And that speaks volumes, you know, for where their heads are at, and maybe that's been their experience. And again, judging by what we saw in the maps, you know, from the election, like it's pretty obvious which communities are portraying those narratives and pushing that picture, and this is the byproduct of that.
Well, and specifically the 4Bs are no marrying, right? This came from Korea because there was a lot of, and we'll get into the kind of the reasons why it kind of started up in this feminist movement in Korea, but it's no marrying, no giving birth, or no having babies, essentially, no dating, and no sex. All with men, I guess, is specifically. Yeah. So no.
In Korea, all the verbs are B's. Start with B in Korean. That's why it's the 4B.
Exactly. So it's interesting. I'm just thinking, like, I think men stopped or started the 4B movement a while ago. Men have stopped getting married. Men don't give birth. Well, usually they're not supposed to. Men have stopped dating, and
the final form of
men
feminism?
Are no longer having sex. That's interesting. So
the
it's
Catholic
like,
Church
again,
did this way before them.
Feminism basically says just be a man, and so they're going and doing the things that men are not doing. You know,
all I heard is that the Catholic Church was on this train a long time ago.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. That's the crazy thing, right?
These
So
are just
to
like
protest.
Feminist nuns?
To protest,
is that what we have now?
Exactly.
FemNUNs?
Well, because I mean that's the funny thing. To protest, I am so angry at the white cisgendered males that are running the show and the Christianity, the Christian nationalism that's being pressed. To protest this Christian nationalism and this Christian culture, I'm going to live a moral and acceptable life and not have sex. And not have premarital sex, and I'm not going to date until I'm ready to marry. And it's like, bro, we had this. Josh Harris is like, I might have started something.
That's right.
All the feminists are picking up Why I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And I mean, like,
we should just reissue the cover with, like, this is what we'll do. It'll be I Kissed Dating Goodbye, a guide to FemNUNism. And just have like Handmaid's Tale on the chick from Handmaid's Tale on the front cover.
They're self-imposing the 90s purity movement on themselves. I mean, hey, like, hey, I'm all about it,
purity
ladies.
Culture? Question mark.
Okay, that's so good. I didn't even think about that. If you're listening, comment below your thoughts about that. If you read I Kissed Dating Goodbye, hop in below, because that was something we were raised on. Remember the purity rings? The True Love Weights rings?
Oh, yeah.
I had a True Love weight ring.
Of course.
We should issue, we could sell that. First merch.
4B.
Liberal, feminist,
I Kiss
True
Dating
Love.
Hold on, I'm getting a call from Zondervan. They want to license my title idea for the 5th issue of Josh Harris. And Josh Harris is perfect because he's apostate now.
Because he's not a Christian.
Harris
he's not a Christian anymore.
And
he can totally do this.
Josh Harris, get with us, man. I just want royalties.
Yeah. Hey. Feminists, we got a champion for you. Okay?
FemNUNism. FemNUNism.
Oh my goodness.
That's what it's called.
That was amazing.
FemNUNism. Oh, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
That is brilliant. Oh my gosh.
So,
for
me, guys, I'm curious too. Like, the response to, like, okay, because of this, now you're finally going to close your legs. right? Like we're talking about the
spite.
We're like, we don't want people killing their babies. So like now you're finally going to stop having sex so that you don't have babies that you want to kill. This is like a win.
This is a win.
Please
Solid
continue.
Win. Yes, I'm
please
pro
continue.
4B. Pro 4B. 100%.
Yes.
Single ladies, get on board that train. You know, 4B before marriage. That's it. I want 4Bs before marriage. I 4B for marriage. That's it.
Bro, I'm telling you,
merch is coming.
Satan is looking for the win, but he just keeps getting the L's, man. I don't understand.
That's a really good perspective.
It's like in Hercules when it's like, he did what? You know, but it's like every time he tries to foil Hercules and it all just backfires on him. So
oh my gosh.
It's like a shtick at this point.
So funny.
Man.
It's like you can't, we always are like, what are we going to talk about this week? It's like the headlines just make themselves right now.
It's just
like,
keep on coming.
So wonderful.
Yep. Yeah.
And
so
I know.
It's just, it is rather sad. I mean, granted, we're kind of joking around and making fun, but the reality is, like, this is an unsustainable movement. Like, a country needs a 2.1 fertility rate in their country just to maintain the numbers and the population,
which is disputed,
right? Josh, which is totally fine. Because the population that's affected we're okay with that, generally speaking. All right.
Well, we're talking about the collapse of countries.
That's
like
collapse of states I keep and certain counties on parts of our country.
I mean, yes. Okay, that would affect. That's true. I guess that doesn't. I guess you make a point in regard to our country. So we're talking about. I was more referring to, like, South Korea and Japan and stuff like that, where it's completely just falling apart, and they're trying to put incentives towards getting their women to have children.
Well, let's talk about that, Josh.
So apparently K-pop isn't doing it.
Well, let's talk about that. So we have a video clip that explains a little bit more in depth, like where 4B came from. And I think this is a good pivot point to talk about this, because when we look at the origin of these two different things, like the U.S. has co-opted this 4B movement based on certain parts of our country have co-opted this based on their perception of a threat, right? But that, like, let's look at where 4B actually initiated to begin with, right? So if we pull up that clip, we can look at kind of like...
South Korea's feminist 4B movement is built on 4 principles: no dating, no marriage, no childbirth, and no sex. And it sparked an interest among US women after Donald Trump's US presidential election victory. It's also gone viral on TikTok and X. Lee Min-jung is a South Korean feminist author and an early member of the 4B movement.
I think Trump's re-election would have given a sense of crisis for minorities, especially for women who are ethnic minorities. Since it has a negative impact on women's human rights, such as the right to terminate a pregnancy, I think there has been a lot of interest among women in the US in joining this movement, because they must have felt the need for some sort of action to solve this issue by themselves.
Experts say the movement emerged after a series of sex crimes shocked South Korea, including thousands of cases of spy cams being used to secretly film women.
Which is informative already, right? So that's crazy.
In South Korea, they started the 4B movement because of sexual harassment and sexual assault,
which was rampant in their culture.
Right, which is rampant in their culture. In the United States, the 4B movement is because they can't murder children.
No, because a woman wrote a book about a fake theocratic genocide.
Handmaid's Tale.
And then it's like in America, where women have to create fictional propaganda material to paint a picture of their fake, oppression. Like, what?
I mean, can we stop producing narcissists in our country? I mean, it's not about
male or female.
That's a whole different episode.
Yeah. Oh, that's very true.
Gosh.
But let's zoom in on the actual issue here, which is exactly that. There was a documented systemic actual problem in Korea, right? And so this would be a natural response to that. Is like, hey, And we see that even within, like, if we look at the positive aspect of that within Christian culture, like, people give purity culture a hard time, but I know plenty of young women and stuff who are like, oh, hey, look, you have a porn addiction problem, like, I'm not going to date you. Like, good.
Right?
Good. Like,
right.
Oh, hey, I'm not going to sleep with you until I get married because you don't share my values. Fantastic. Like,
right.
Again,
yeah.
Like, welcome, my progressive friends. People, if you've stumbled in here and you're not a Christian, we're glad that you're starting to see value in Christian and biblical principles, like such as convictions and actually altering your life and your comfort zone to live within them for the sake of the well-being of yourself and your community and your family.
Yeah. However, this is not that, although there is obviously a core component. This is a power grab. This is a left-wing ideology that is trying to say we have no power left. The only power we have left is over our private parts, and we are now going to lock those down.
Which is not even, yeah.
To that end, it is, in a weird sort of way, it's like, okay, that's great. You have every right to do that. I wish you would have started sooner. And
for different reasons. But,
well,
but hey, listen,
look,
you know what?
all the reasons to create a femistery where they can, brew wine or distill.
I don't know what they would brew there.
Wineries.
However,
the monks got beer. We now have somebody who can do the wine.
Yeah, come on. Some femisteries, man. It's feminist monasteries.
It's this thing is like, but at least they're standing up.
You're
like,
a woman here. We love you. We're not.
We do. We're not.
I promise.
In general, we love women as people who married them, as God intended. The thing that gets me though is I'm glad that people are like living out their convictions. I mean, maybe now that they're starting to do these things, they'll maybe look at Christians with maybe a little bit more empathy. It's like, oh, so that's what you guys have been doing this whole time. Like, that's it. It's like, we get it. Yeah. You think killing babies, unborn children, is something that's very important to you. Something so important to you that you're willing to forego pleasure or forego, advancing and building your families or doing these things in order to, make a stand about your convictions. I think those convictions are evil, but at least you're standing on your convictions. And that's step one, like, be willing to sacrifice for something that's more important than yourself. I'm all about that. That's step one as far as I'm concerned. So, because then once you're there, then you can start to empathize, then you can start to look across at other people and say like, oh, that's why they have this extreme attitude, is because they believe in this thing as deeply, as I do. And that's the big thing is like, that's why I try to be charitable also, to say that like a lot of the people who, I'm sure that there are older women in this movement as well, but at least under younger progressive, people who are promoting this, at least that's what we're seeing in the news media. These are young people who are figuring out who they are and their place in the world and figuring out their own worldview. And they've probably grown up around a group of people who have been spending their whole lives telling them this is an existential threat. And so they're leaning into that,
Right.
Yeah.
What's another crazy thought about this is that you really have to connect some dots, but it really starts to like get crazy interesting, because the decision now is, well, you're making it more difficult for me to kill my baby because of the sex I want to have, so I'm going to stop having that sex. However, in 1960, that was this massive fork in the road that took place because the pill came out, right? Mm-hmm. And so the sexual revolution and the genesis of all of this was, okay, I can have sex now without consequences. And obviously abortion and the access to abortion and Roe v. Wade, right? Like, so it's like basically this hedonistic culture that all of these children were born into, which is, I can do what I want with my body at any stage and at every step. And now with this states' rights around abortion, it's kind of like, oh, wait, I actually have to maybe think twice before having sex now, because there might actually be consequences to my actions.
Yeah.
And it's like there's a thread you can keep pulling on here around what are other things that could be put in place that would allow us to kind of go back to a society and a culture that was like, think before you act. How amazing would that be?
Dude, my brother and I wanted to create, we were having this conversation walking through Charleston, because a lot of people don't realize that, like, in Charleston, they would have these vine kind of like lattice things between the buildings, and women would sit out there, and because it's hot in Charleston, they would be in an inappropriate state of dress, not naked or anything, but inappropriate by the standards of that time, right? And so as a man, if you were caught lingering, like, you could walk past the houses, but like,
you're not talking about right now, you're talking about in the past.
In the past,
history,
yeah,
this
in the
was
past.
a thing.
We were talking about that. We were there a couple years ago walking around, and he was telling me about this. And he said if you were caught lingering there, it was like instant duel. Like, they would just come out of the house.
Pistols.
No, and that's serious. And so we were joking, like, you know, we wanted to create, you know, like stickers or shirts or something that said, you know, make words dangerous again, legalize dueling. Like, that was the whole the whole idea, because but it said exactly what you're talking about. It's that we have removed the consequences of just doing, like, you can say whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and there's no real unsurvivable consequences outside of, like, I mean, even I would even say
it's worse on the internet and social media. There's no consequence, right?
Reinforced.
So, yeah. Well, and I think that's the interesting thing to note about all of this is that the 4B movement didn't really start in Korea until like the 2010s, 2014 through 2016, and you could see that there was like a drop during that time. In fact, actually, I got a graph here. So if you look at, I mean, something happened, I don't know, in the 1970s. It just dropped.
That's a good graph.
Like way down, right? The birth rate. But
the fertility rate, yeah.
You had, but this is interesting. The 1970s here. Do you think that maybe because you had the birth control pill available to the world, like suddenly there's this
100%,
for sure,
100%.
I'm not saying that's exactly what it is,
but people still don't know anthropologically what that has caused to humanity. Like, we still don't have a clue.
Well, and there's all kinds of, and I don't want to get into like the whole like conspiracy theory, you know, I don't know, we'll see. RFK Jr. will find out for us, but you know, the idea of how easy it is to get on, how easy it is to get on birth control, for that doctors would prescribe it. Oh, I'm having unusually difficult pains or for acne, and then you all of a sudden they're on birth control for years, and then by the time they're ready to have children at 30, their body has essentially rejected any kind of
that's a good idea. We should.
But what I'm saying is, you know, you have this drop, and maybe that's due to birth control, but it seems like it kind of started going up a little bit. But this is right around the time that this 4B movement kind of took place, and you see just what follows there is it just drops, and right now it's at what 0.072. And I don't know if it's disputed or not, but like to be actually replenishable, you have to be at 2.1 is what they were saying.
Their economy is in a dumpster fire right now, right? Like their GDP to debt is something like 250 to 300%.
Which may cause lower birth rates, right?
Well, it's all of it
and stuff.
It's not.
No, it's the snowball. So their snowball, they can't stop it from rolling. That's the problem. That's why this is a current conversation right now, is because when that snowball gets momentum, things start to break really bad. Yeah. And like for us, with the amount of our aging population and like just the Social Security problem right now, right? Like all of this is downstream of, we literally don't have enough workers contributing to the system that would then pay for the system. And so the system starts to break down. But yeah, no, it's fascinating to think through these causes. And you know what? The best way that we can do to counteract here on the I'm Telling God About This podcast, if you're listening, here is one of the best ways that we can tip our hat and nod to the 4B people. Let's all go out and have another baby, and let's outbreed the crazies.
That's it. Hey, here's something to think
I'll
about.
take one for the team. I got it.
I'm done at 3. That's it. I'm over. I'm above replacement.
You can
I'm
go
above
tell your
replacement.
spouse right now. I listened to the podcast. They told us we should go have another baby. It is for the good of mankind.
That's true. It
And
wouldn't
the
be bad.
procreation of morality. Let's go.
But here's the
It is
thing.
our American duty.
Yes, there was a song in Greece about that, I think, or was it Greece too? I forget. Anyway, there's but like this is one of those things that when we look at why our society is just falling to pieces, and when we look at how to fix it, our founders saw this. The founders saw the start of globalism. You know, coming out in the colonial time frame. This is a group of young men. They were our age, most of them, who were first generation. Some of them immigrated directly, but were first generation Americans that were born here or came over here, and these guys had started to see the world shrinking, and started to see how, hey, if this just becomes another England. That was the whole idea of like taxation without representation. It's that like things are different here, and so we need our own, at a minimum we need representation, but really probably our own sense of governance. And so one of the things that is a fix to this, and I think we're long overdue for an overcorrection from, is that globalism has just been on a moonshot of the world becoming more and more centralized, more and more, I remember being younger and there was a big difference between the states, but I travel all over the world now, and apart from jumping continents, everything is the same. In Europe, traveling across Europe, it's different a little bit, but it's still very much the same things in the same places. If I dropped you off in most towns in America off of a highway exit, you wouldn't know where you are, because you're going to see the exact same things. You're going to see a Chili's, a Walmart, Home Depot, a Best Buy, and a Waffle House, and an Exxon or a Chevron, and you're going to be like, I think, am I in my town? Like, you don't know. It's like, it doesn't matter where you're at. And the same is true with the point I'm making with this is, the way we fix these problems is that when states are able to become different, and this is where Europe has maintained this and America has not, is that when states are allowed to have individual identity again, then people will be forced to go or to stay where they fit. And that's what Europe has. Like, there is a difference between Germany and Italy and France. Culturally, very different. If you come to Germany, you're not getting anything done on a Sunday. Sunday is for church and walking and ice cream. And that is it. Like, that is all
Sounds
we do
amazing.
on a Sunday.
And that might be actually benefit some of our audience, maybe in our 18 to 25 range, that is like, what the heck, globalism, populism, what is that, right? Because you did make the point that globalists have really just been on a moonshot. It's just been on a rampage, and this idea that everything kind of becomes centralized. Like the globalists, when we talk about the globalist elite, we talk about these entities that want to essentially one world government, that they don't want any distinctions, right? There's no
Cut Alex Jones
individual identity, right? Exactly. It's a globalist.
It's just a globalist elite. Turn the frogs gay. Anyway.
Right, exactly. So I mean, and so what I think what you're getting at is, from the standpoint of the United States, is we've been really moving towards like European or
away from that. We're becoming
cultures.
more. We've become the same. We're just
right.
We're all like, we have this latent hangover. It's like a watermark of values. It's like if I hold it up to the light, like if I have a conversation with someone if I took 5 people from the from the 4 corners in the central part of America, and I put them all in a room, and if I just had them talk to each other, text messaging, no one would know where they were from for hours, because you couldn't hear the accent. So you would, like, what are you going to talk about? How long do you have to talk to somebody before you're going to know distinctive values? Whereas I guarantee you, if I put a Dutchman, a German, an Italian, and an Irishman, even in chat, you're going to be like, that dude's from Germany, that guy's Dutch, that guy's Irish, and you would know like that because there's something about the way that their culture is very distinct, and we don't have that in states anymore. We really don't.
Hughes, what does this point have to do with the 4B movement,
The thing that has to do with the 4B movement is this, that we need to get away from viewing our country as one homogenous entity, and we need to allow states and people who have different value systems live and create laws and have culture that is distinctly different. In other words, when it comes to things like abortion, when it comes to things like, what's acceptable, before or after marriage in a society, what's acceptable in terms of
marijuana
behavior,
guns,
whatever it is, all
of
those things, that it becomes okay for the people in Alabama to have really strict laws on abortion. And it becomes okay for people in California to do what they want to do. Because the thing is this, I'm not accountable for it. Of course, if you ask me, do I think abortion should be illegal everywhere? I would say yes. But when you ask me, am I accountable for what California does? No, I'm not. I'm not a resident of California. I'm a resident of Florida.
So, yeah, but just to clarify, when you say the words, it becomes okay, that's what you actually mean is we've taken it down a tier and it's gone from this federal level, everything is here and we have to do all of our work at the federal level, and if we want to adjust a policy it has to be done at the federal level, and if there's immorality we have to fight that immorality at the federal level. This is a win. This doesn't actually have to be all that controversial, and this is a current conversation happening right now, because if we do pivot into a reality where there is a much more prevalent states' rights opportunity, then for all of us that are anti-abortion, we can go focus on the states that are still killing children at whatever crazy month mark prior to birth, right? And so as Christians, I like this idea as well, because you can
Israel
never
split
have your
into two kingdoms, right? Judah and Israel, right? And Judah was kind of followed.
That wasn't a good thing,
at least some good kings. Well, I know, but they at least had some good kings, whereas Israel, the northern kingdom, didn't have any good kings. So at least there was at least some opportunity for
the good thing is this, Tim, or Nick, is that I agree. We can pray and send missionaries. That would be great. Yeah, we can do all that. We can pray and send missionaries.
Send missionaries to New York.
Yeah, people. I mean, we should be doing that anyway. We go back to our missions episode, right? But like, what I'm getting at is we won't really even have to do that, because that's the beautiful thing about fruit, is that if you can, it's like seeing the forest for the trees, right? You can't see what's going on because it's all so homogenous. But if we can actually make them different, then we can point to what's happening in those places and say, it becomes a much easier conversation to say, do you want to live in Sodom and Gomorrah, or do you want to live in, Canaan? Like, what do you want? I mean,
that's why a lot of people moved to Texas,
100%.
And moved to Tennessee, and moved to Florida, right? During COVID, and everybody worked remote, and people in New York and California said, wait, hold on. You mean I could actually work remotely but not have to deal with the taxes in this state? I'm going to move, right? And so many people ended up, they just picked up shop and left. And so what you see, I think, in, for instance, in Texas, with people that are coming to Texas understand that the spirit of Texas, or at least the culture in Texas, is that is so much stronger in its own identity as Texans than any other state, I would argue. Sure. I mean,
the salt is salty.
They have my kids. They'll get up in the mornings and they'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then they'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to Texas. They do it all. And so there is a sense of identity and community like that. Hey, I'm also a Texan.
I'm a Texan. Yeah.
And so there is this, but it's interesting because we could go into a deep dive into what was the Reconstruction efforts after the Civil War, because during the Civil War you had the people that joined, the states that joined the war, they were joining because of their they were a Virginian, or they were
Josh, remember that was only 80 years. This is my point. The founders knew this. That is why that's why we were created as states. We are the United States of America. We weren't called North Point 5 America.
I get the idea though that you have such the identity as like a Texan first or a Virginian first or a Tennessean or whatever they call themselves. Then you get to more of like, okay, now there's an opportunity for like an actual state by state war or something like that, and people might be worried about that. But here's the thing: I don't think that the solution to that is federal. No,
it's not.
The federal control of states. So,
this is the point. They're getting all upset. The reason I bring this back to 4B is that they're all upset because they're worried about what President-elect Donald Trump is going to do. Okay? Mm-hmm. That they're worried about him gutting the Department of Education or gutting NHS or gutting all of these things. But what they don't understand...
You mean your local community will have to be in charge of education?
Yeah. It's like, what? Oh, bummer. Yeah, states will have to spend more money on things like educating their people instead of billions of dollars wasted on using their state budgets to deal with things like, the homelessness problem or DEI or these other things where they're just hemorrhaging money over nonsense instead... because that's the reason they get away with it. The reason they get away with it is because all of the real important things are federally subsidized. So when you take away the federal subsidies, all of a sudden the populace is going to be like, well, who's going to pay to educate my kids now? And they're going to turn and look at, Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom's going to be like, I guess we could cut a couple things, right. That's what's going to happen. And that's what should happen. And will it be messy, and is there risk involved in that? Yeah, of course there is. But that's
political
we got
battles
here.
And
it's messy
talking
now.
Points and
Yeah,
exactly. That's absolutely right. You're never going to be able to escape the messiness of it. However, what we can see is when there are positive results, when we start seeing test scores going up, when we start to see birth rates going up, when we start to see fulfillment and employment and jobs and happy
abortion
families
rates
and kids
going down,
and lower crime rates and lower abortion rates and
less
all
women
of
on
these
antidepressants.
Things. Well, I mean, it's interesting, Josh. I mean, you can back me up on this because what was the Abrahamic covenant, right? That they would be a blessing to the nation, so that when the nations came and saw Israel, like, wow, you guys got something right.
What
you guys are doing something
salt
different.
If it loses its saltiness? That's kind of my point. That's really. And to be honest, that's the heartbeat of this podcast. And I got friends, pastors and other friends who are like, oh, I love the podcast, and then I get some people who will say things like, oh, it's kind of divisive, or like, oh, you're being, what's like you're making these hot takes, or like dunking on people and whatnot. And it's like, no, I'm being me. I'm not tamping down the distinctive nature of my sanctification, that as I become more like Christ intends me to be, then I'm going to be different, and you may or may not like that. I'm not going to make that more palpable, and that is the greasy, sticky hangover of this seeker-sensitive 90s nonsense lighthouse garbage church nonsense that I grew up in, that like I gotta preserve the relationship, and that's how we lead people to Jesus, by just loving the crap out of them. That's what Jesus did. And I'm like, no, he said the stone the builders rejected to become the cornerstone, that we're the stumbling block.
That
the what good is the
stumbling
salt
block.
That you can be hot or you can be cold, but if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. Like that. And I have been guilty of that. I moved around every couple years my whole life, and you want to fit in, you want to deal with that. And I know that more than I challenge another person who's experienced that more than I have. And I'm not saying that to make me feel, but I'm just saying, like, I know I speak so violently against it because I'm so guilty of it, and I've been so convicted in this season about that it is time for us to stop being nice. And by that, I mean not being loving, but being nice, what that has come to mean, which is I'm going to not say what I think. I'm going to not be who I am. I'm going to not support what I believe in to avoid causing you emotional distress and pain, what are we doing? You know?
I think that's the compassion, being compassionate is not letting people just do whatever they want. I think I saw a short of Jordan Peterson having a conversation who's saying, parents that are compassionate to their kids and don't correct them and they let them essentially do whatever they want. That's not compassion. That's enablement.
Yeah,
right. That's
exactly.
enabling kids to make bad decisions. And so understands, like, as the body of Christ, we all have different roles, right? The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, right? And so there's going to be different approaches, but ultimately at the end of the day, the body of Christ is going to say, yeah, we don't want you to kill your children, So like there are some hard line standards, but it's not because we don't want you to express yourself. We don't want you to hurt yourself. We don't want to hurt other people around you. Here is the better way. We found the better way. We have the way that has lasted and stood the test of time, that has helped societies. I mean, before Christianity, cannibalism and child sacrifice was totally like within the realm of normal behavior.
Social norms.
Right? So it's like
it would be colonized by
one
Christians
of the things
or the Aztecs.
Yes. Right.
Oh,
and even today, like let's take a look. We're talking about in Western civilization, like we're arguing whether we can have abortions because men and women want to have unconsequential sex. I mean, you want to talk about the kinds of debauchery that was happening 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. The Assyrians were flaying their enemies alive and hanging them on the city walls. Like, we're not doing that. We've already kind of come from...
John, side note.
We're a little bit farther along, okay?
Right. Side note, one of the things about growing up in Europe and the conversations I have to have with my children is like, goes like this. We're driving through Europe, we're passing castles and everything, and we make a Dracula joke or something like that, and my daughter goes, Dracula was real. He was a prince. His name was Vlad the Impaler. And you know what that means? That means he stuck the bad guys on sticks through their bodies outside so people could see them. Yeah, and then they're like, but did he drink their blood? How come people think they drink their blood? And how come I'm like, I had to explain how like myth grows and like goes beyond this. Right. And he was like, I still think it's crazy that he like stuck people on sticks and hung them outside. That seems pretty gross. And I'm like, yeah, it was a pretty dark place, back then. And it's like, that's...
Lest we forget the darkness we've come from.
That's it.
And the progress
right.
we've achieved.
So,
and we are a hop, skip, and a jump and a generation away from going back to that.
Yeah,
right?
And you can watch it on the news.
Think about it. When you reject Christianity, when you reject objective moral truths, what happens? Mao,
you're gonna have
Stalin,
a bad time. Okay?
Pol Pot. You got 100 million people in the 20th century that have been killed because of godless government.
Yep.
Because of godless people. And so, argue all you want and say, oh, they're gonna put us in bonnets and
breed us to death,
cloaks and stuff, and breed us to death, and all these things.
Let's
it's like,
bring
well, first of all,
belts
no,
back.
But they're doing it on their own. They're doing it on their own.
That's exactly my point.
But understand, like, there is a better way.
That's right.
There is a better way, a way of fulfillment. And I would urge you, look at these stories of these conversion stories of women, of men that have been like, hey, I was in this life, I was not happy, and when I met Jesus, it's like the veil was ripped away, and I could see clearly, vividly, and it's
so
come and see.
Moral of the story is this: 4B movement, we're here for you. We love it.
You have our support. We'll sponsor you all day long.
4B.
No before marriage.
Yeah, that's it. 4Bs before marriage. That's it. 4Bs before marriage. We support FemNUNism and
the feministaries.
And feministaries. They're called, I forget what they're called. Anyway, if you've stuck with us this long, tell your friends.
The nunneries.
Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Actually, this was a really cool. We had somebody leave a comment that we're probably going to do as the next topic for next week's episode. So we would love if you have any ideas for things you would want us to dissect, double click on, triple click on. You never know, but we love getting feedback from you guys.
Let's leave a hook. The next episode, they talk about video games and how it's been kind of
Christians and video games. So it's going to be a spicy episode, I think.
It'll be interesting.
Techies in the group, and anyway,
look, here's just the
like a Last
if you're
of Us
not good at
with
video
Jesus.
games, and you don't play video games because you suck at them does not give you reason to dunk on people that do play video games. Just saying.
Well, let me just say, nope, I'm gonna save it for next episode.
Save it for next week. Can we cut in?
Anyway.
I just need to cut in.
All right.
I just want to cut in, a chaplain from Space Marine, like right here, and then we can do cutscenes. Yes, next week's episode.
That's right.
All right. Till next time.
Right.
This has been another episode of the I'm Telling God About This podcast. If you're still here, we love and appreciate your listening and engaging with us. Give us a subscribe, a share, a comment. We really value your feedback. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next time.
Civilization, all you have 20 years of dumpster fires, purple hair, people who don't know which bathroom to go into. Get off my lawn.